Why the U.S. can't end poverty. Policymakers, economists, and social advocates have been baffled by the complicated and enduring issue of poverty in the United States for many years. The United States has failed to eradicate poverty, even though it is one of the richest nations in the world, possessing abundant resources and a robust economy. This problem is complex and involves social, political, and cultural elements in addition to economic ones, making solutions challenging. We will examine the causes of the United States' failure to eradicate poverty in this video, with an emphasis on systemic inequalities, economic policies, social safety nets, education, and cultural perspectives on poverty. Poverty and systemic inequality. The pervasive systemic inequality that exists across American culture is one of the main reasons why the country is unable to eradicate poverty. Poverty is brought about and maintained by inequality in wealth, income, and resource access. There is a large divide between the rich and the poor in the United States, which has one of the highest rates of income inequality among developed countries. Historical elements that have disadvantaged some groups, African Americans and Hispanics in particular, such as slavery, segregation, and discrimination, are the source of this inequity. There are various ways that systemic inequality shows up. First, there are differences in the availability of good housing, healthcare, and education. Low-income families are frequently forced to live in subpar housing and underfunded school districts and with no access to healthcare. It is challenging to escape the poverty cycle that is brought about by these drawbacks. For instance, children from low-income families are more likely to attend poor schools, which lowers their prospects of going to college and finding well-paying employment. Secondly, unfair labor market practices contribute to systemic inequality. Studies have revealed that even in cases when they possess comparable qualifications, women and minorities frequently earn less than their white male counterparts, in spite of anti-discrimination regulations. These groups' poverty rates are higher as a result of the pay gap, which also restricts their ability to advance economically. In addition, women and minorities are more likely to be employed in low-paying positions with few benefits, which furthers their poverty. Economic policies and their impact. The United States government's economic policies have been a major contributor to the persistence of poverty. The United States has been pursuing neoliberal economic policies for the past few decades, emphasizing tax breaks for the wealthiest, market deregulation, and lower government spending on social services. These policies have helped the rich and stimulated the economy, but they haven't really addressed poverty and have even made it worse in certain situations. Reducing the highest marginal tax rate, which has been falling consistently since the 1980s, was one of the biggest changes in policy. The wealthiest have disproportionately profited from this reduction, while the middle class and lower classes have seen an increase in taxes. As a result, there is now more income inequality and less money available for the government to fund social initiatives that help reduce poverty. The minimum wage, which has not increased in line with inflation, is another problem with policy. Since 2009, the federal minimum wage has stayed constant at $7.25 per hour despite increases in living expenses. Due to this, a lot of full-time employees are finding it difficult to make ends meet, especially in pricey cities. Even with extended work hours, millions of Americans are still stuck in poverty because they do not receive a living income. The U.S. government has cut financing for social safety nets like welfare programs, food assistance, and housing subsidies in addition to tax and wage policies. For instance, the 1996 welfare reform reduced the number of persons eligible for help by placing severe time constraints and job requirements on claimants. Even though the goal of these measures was to promote self-sufficiency, they have instead prevented many families and vulnerable individuals from receiving the assistance they require to escape poverty. The safety net for social workers. The social safety net in the United States, which is meant to protect the vulnerable, is sometimes criticized for being insufficient and badly thought out. The United States, in contrast to many other industrialized countries, has a disjointed, means-tested welfare system that frequently falls short of the needs of the most vulnerable. The system is intricate, with several initiatives focusing on various facets of poverty, including housing, healthcare, and food. Nevertheless, many people miss out since the qualifying standards are frequently strict. Food stamps, often known as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, are one of the main flaws in the American social safety net. Millions of Americans depend on SNAP for critical help, but the payments are frequently insufficient to fully pay for a healthy diet. Furthermore, individuals who are unemployed may not be eligible for aid under the program's labor criteria, leaving them without any. Economic mobility and education. Although education is frequently cited as the route to economic mobility, there are many disparities in the American educational system that contribute to poverty. A child's location has a significant impact on the level of education they receive. Kids in affluent communities attend well-funded schools, while kids in impoverished areas attend underfunded ones. The perception of higher education as a means of escaping poverty has resulted in a growing barrier to entry for students from lower-income backgrounds. Over the past few decades, the cost of college tuition has soared, creating a student debt problem. Low-income students are sometimes compelled to take out large loans in order to attend college, and those who do not graduate are frequently left with debt that they are unable to pay back. Even those who do graduate could have trouble finding employment that pays enough to keep them in debt and impoverished, as they would then be stuck in a never-ending cycle of unemployment. Cultural perspectives on poverty. Another major factor contributing to the problem's persistence in the United States is cultural perceptions regarding poverty. The United States has a long tradition of individualism and a firm belief in the American dream, which holds that anybody may achieve success with perseverance and hard effort. Although this idea has the potential to be uplifting, it also breeds a propensity to place the blame for poverty squarely on the shoulders of the individual rather than the systemic causes. There is a widespread blame the victim tendency in American politics and society. People who are impoverished are sometimes thought to be lazy, unmotivated, or to have made bad decisions. This story fails to acknowledge the systemic obstacles that numerous individuals encounter, such as inadequate access to high-quality education, discrimination in the workforce, and exorbitant living expenses. Because they are perceived as encouraging bad behavior, initiatives that would offer more substantial help for persons living in poverty are therefore frequently met with resistance. The functions of gender and race. Knowledge by the United States cannot eradicate poverty requires a knowledge of race and gender. People of color and women are disproportionately affected by poverty as a result of historical and modern circumstances coming together. In addition to women being more likely than men to be impoverished, especially single moms, African Americans, Hispanics, and Native Americans have greater rates of poverty than do white people. Poverty among persons of color is significantly influenced by the racial wealth disparity. Black Americans and other minorities have been routinely denied access to opportunities that contribute to wealth creation, like housing and education, because of decades of discriminatory practices, such as slavery, segregation, and redlining. Because of this, they are comparatively less wealthy than white people, which makes it more difficult for them to overcome poverty. The effects of outside factors. Poverty in the United States is also a result of external causes like globalization, technological advancements, and economic recessions. Recessions in the economy, like the Great Recession of 2008, can result in a large-scale loss of jobs, lower incomes, and a rise in poverty. Recessions can last for years, even when the economy finally improves. This is especially true for low-income people who may find it difficult to obtain new jobs. Automation and the transition to a knowledge-based economy are two examples of how technological advancements had increased poverty by decreasing the demand for low-skill occupations. A large number of traditional manufacturing jobs that offered working-class Americans steady, well-paying employment have been exported to foreign nations or replaced by computers. Because of this, a large number of workers lack the skills necessary for the jobs of the future, which causes poverty and long-term unemployment. The United States poverty problem is partly due to globalization. Globalization has brought about economic expansion and cheaper consumer costs, but has also boosted competition for low-wage workers and resulted in job outsourcing. Due to this, wages have been under pressure to decline, and it is now more difficult for workers to find steady jobs. This finishes our today's video. Share your thoughts on this in the comments section below. Also subscribe now for more. Thanks for watching.